Orlina. So we are finally really starting to see a bunch of this ramping up across the Northeast. Here's a live look actually in Times Square in New York City. You can see there's quite a bit of snow falling down. Earlier it was way more hectic. There was a bunch of snow coming down, a bunch of wind. It's calmed down a little bit, but you can see they have a lot of snow, upwards of a foot in many areas, even more in other areas. As you can see, a lot of snow. They've been working to keep the roads clear, but they get covered so quickly because of the rate of the snowfall. New York, you could change over to a tiny, maybe a bit of a sleet snow mix soon. It's very possible. Right now, I'm pretty sure it's only snow. There could be a little bit of sleet mix again, but I'm pretty sure it's just snow right now and very heavy rains coming down. This is going to be one of the best storms in a long time for you. So, my friend, Precise Weather, you might know who he is. Precise Weather, he's going to comment down below, and you can go subscribe to him if you already haven't. Here is his tweet, and as you can see, he has quite a bit of snow on the ground where he lives in eastern Pennsylvania, and actually, he is getting 3 inches an hour almost. He's got 5.5 inches in 2 hours. So we're about 3 inches per hour in these snow bands, and he has more and more coming. But you can see he's at 15 inches of snow. Just 1 hour ago, he was at 12. So an hour later, it could be here and then here. If this is consistent, it's not going to be that consistent. I don't think we're going to get for the next 3 hours 3 inches per hour for him. But it's very possible. I do think it's going to calm down a teeny bit. But as you can see, here it is. Here is the live radar. And as you can see, we have very heavy snow bands moving over here. I will warn you that some of this does have sleet in it, especially towards the Philadelphia area. They have been reporting quite a bit of sleet. Even towards Allentown, they have reported a bit of sleet. As you can see, very heavy snow bands in these dark blue. So it's very heavy precipitation. It's either sleet or snow in a lot of these areas. The more north you go and the more inland you go, you're going to be the more inland you go over here and the more west where we have a lot of moisture is where it's most likely to be snow. In New York, you're in a little bit of a, not as much of a heavy band, but you were in really heavy bands this morning especially. I can show y'all. You can see those heavy snow bands really came through. You can't see it too great on this because this doesn't go that far back, but it was actually really heavy, and they had the heaviest snows I think the Northeast has probably had out of this whole storm. Now a lot of those bands are starting to move into these areas. Very heavy snow. Like I said, 3 inches per hour in some spots. You can see this rain snow line's really starting to creep up to a lot of areas. And I think Boston, if you already have it, you are changing over to rain, as you can see. So Boston, your window for all snow is done for now. We might get snow on the backside most likely, but we are changing over to rain like they were thinking. And you can see we already do have quite a bit of rain in coastal Massachusetts over towards Nantucket. Some pretty heavy rain. And remember, the winds are howling in this. So that is a big thing too. And you can see as we go north, the precipitation only goes up through southern New Hampshire, but it's going to keep moving north. And if we were to go ahead and zoom out and look at the north, a lot of the Northeast, we can see how big this storm is. This storm is huge. I wouldn't say it's the biggest storm we've ever seen, but this is certainly blockbuster for many of you, especially once we go towards a lot of eastern PA, especially like northeastern PA, and oh gosh, we went all the way to Cuba. Okay, especially once you go over to northeast PA, once you get into New Jersey, we are seeing some of our blockbuster totals. I would not be surprised if some people got upwards of 2 to 3 feet, most likely. But yeah, this is moving very slow. That's my bad. But as you can see over here, here we go. So you can see there's a system. It's pretty major. So yeah, and we're starting to get a lot of these really heavy winds, especially along the coast. So expect some power outages. And then you can see once we go a little bit more inland, even towards New York City for now, we are seeing really heavy snows, 3 inches per hour in some spots. So as you can see, as we go on into the future, it's very heavy precipitation falling for many of you. Northern New Jersey and northeast PA getting, probably not New York City. I don't think New York City's going to get the most out of everyone, but I think northern New Jersey and northeast Pennsylvania are going to get probably the best totals from this whole storm. But you can see very good high precipitation rates, and that'll just keep dumping snow, especially my friend in eastern Pennsylvania. He might get the most out of everyone from the storm. He might be in the hot spot. But as you can see, some very good precipitation will be falling. Boston, you're most likely going to change over, as I was saying, to some pretty heavy rains. But once you get west of Boston, you look to be in a pretty good spot. So let's go ahead and look at power outages. I have a little map that can show you the power outages. Here it is, poweroutage.us. If you want to check on power outages, you can too using this website. But yeah, So I'm sorry it's moving a little bit slow. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, right now there's no major power outages in many of these areas. Actually, the most major power outages are actually in California, which kind of makes sense because it's the most populated state, and they got a bunch of heavy rain, heavy snow from this system, so it does make a ton of sense. But as you can see, right here across New York State has 3,687 people out of power, and this will keep going up. New Jersey has 4,000. Pennsylvania only has around 600, but once we get to Connecticut, we have 2,000, and then once we get into Massachusetts, we have about 1,400, 1,300, and then once we go more north, it's not as major because they haven't gotten hit yet. But as you can see, once we go south, North Carolina's, it's already past 2,700. Over here in Virginia, we have around 170. Once we get into West Virginia, not that many because they didn't get hit as hard. But you can see a lot of these states that got hit do have some pretty high totals. But they're starting to get their power back. Maryland, 1,571. So quite a bit for a lot of people. The top areas by power outages are California to Florida, and then we have New Jersey and New York in the top 5 also. So power outages is not the worst right now, but especially along the coast, I do think we're going to have some pretty bad power outages once we keep going into the thick of the storm. So let's get to the regular part we usually look at. Let's look at the National Weather Service. Let's look at what their alerts are, their winter alerts, and their wind alerts, and their rain alerts. So as you can see right here, we do have in this pink, we have winter storm warnings. This is where we expect the worst of the weather when it comes to snow and maybe sleet in some of the areas, especially closer to the coast. As you can see, like I said, I think this spot's the best part. I think that's our bullseye, and they're still expecting possibly in some spots another a foot to a foot and a half of snow to fall down going into tomorrow. And you can see southern Jersey, your more winter weather advisories. You have some flooding going on there. And New York City, you had some coastal flooding. Someone said there was 2 feet of of water going down the street from the ocean. So the coastal flooding is definitely an issue. You can see we have some high wind warnings off near Nantucket and just coastal Massachusetts. You're really getting in on those winds, especially over here, but really everywhere is getting in on those winds. Blizzard conditions at times. There have been some blizzard conditions at times, definitely. And then once we get into that purple, the light purple, that is just winter weather advisories, so the impacts won't be as bad, or at least not as bad as what you're used to. Because usually, it could be a snow here in Vermont. This is Vermont, right? It might be New Hampshire. I think it's Vermont. But you can see something here. This one's a winter weather advisory here. It could be a winter storm warning down here. It just depends on where you live. So it's not really saying your impacts are going to be nothing. It's just saying, based on your climatology, is it worth a winter storm warning, that kind of thing. So the whole Northeast is really going to get affected. So I wouldn't just pay attention to your totals, not really like the warnings and watches, because it depends on how much you're used to. So right here we are. This is the latest HRRR run. You can see we have those pretty heavy snows as we get into northern New Jersey, northeast Pennsylvania, getting into southern New York. So actually this is actually a little bit later once we get into dinner time, and you can see it's showing that mixing in along a lot of Long Island, getting into New York City. It's definitely possible, I do think. I think I think we can see some sleet moving in. Philadelphia, you've been in that sleet. That's caused quite a bit of sleet causes a lot of travel problems too. And once we get into Boston, this shows all snow, but you're already changing over to rain in some spots. So I think this is a little bit behind. But you can see a good swath of really heavy precipitation and some crazy winds coming up. And you can see some of the worst winds. You see these isobars. So these are called isobars, these lines. And when those are close together, the closer together they are, the worse the winds are going to be. So isobars are equal lines of pressure. So as you can see right here, some of the worst winds where they are closest together. So it's more towards the coastal areas and inland, but still inland we do have some pretty strong winds too. So once we get about 9-10 hours from now to about 12 hours from now, you can see that continues to move north. The heaviest swath of precipitation will be gone once we get to about 12 hours. It'll be gone from a lot of northeast Pennsylvania, northern Jersey, once we get into New York City. But we definitely will still have some lingering snow, which won't be light. It'll still be pretty moderate in some areas. But you can see the main swath of snow will be over here. Maine getting in on some pretty heavy snow. You can see Boston, it still has you in rain. I do think at the end you could change over to some snow. It's most likely you will. But this model doesn't show it as much, but I do think you could change over back to snow for a little bit. And you can see that moisture keeps going into Maine, and actually parts of even getting into these areas of Maine, we are expecting sleet or freezing rain, most likely more sleet than anything, to mix in with that snow. So really the safe bet is up here because that's where we're expecting all snow with that really heavy snow. Other than that, even parts of Maine are going to be mixing in. So that is pretty crazy to see just because it's not because it's really warm in these areas. It's just the way that above you, the atmosphere above you, there's a warm nose in it, which is going to change your snow. It's going to turn it into liquid precipitation. Then it'll refreeze before it hits the ground into sleet. Now, freezing rain would be your snow melts into a raindrop and then it stays a raindrop, and then once it hits the surface, if it's below freezing, it would freeze, and that would cause a lot of ice problems too. So as you can see, we're not expecting freezing rain as much, but you can see in these little pink areas, it is definitely possible. And we still do have quite a bit of lingering moisture down here in Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, parts near New York City. We could be getting in some rain, snow showers, maybe a mix. Freezing rain is definitely possible. And that moisture is going to linger into tomorrow too. So those areas are going to be in precipitation for quite a long time. And then as you can see, as we get into tomorrow morning, this specific model has quite a bit of snow going over Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, getting into Massachusetts. Some good snow, and especially towards Long Island, I think could be some pretty heavy snows. In Boston, that could be some wraparound moisture for you that could give you some snow that you did miss out on. So even though you're going to change to rain, at the end, especially as we get into possibly Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, we could have some snow or rain showers coming in for you too. So if we were to look at totals, this doesn't even go far out enough for some of you once we get into Boston, but this will be your main total. So this is on top of what you already got. So just remember, this is on top of what you've already gotten. So if you've gotten, let's say 12 inches, this could be on top of what you're getting. Now remember that this is a few hours behind, so maybe cut a few inches from this, or you could go higher if you get a heavier burst. So I'm trying to click on it. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, here is what is expecting in the next 48 hours for everyone. So 2 days. And you can see this is some crazy snow totals. You can see it's this model, which is a very accurate model, is still predicting quite a bit of snow to fall down for many of you. And you can see, especially eastern Pennsylvania, where we've already picked up a lot, getting into North Jersey, getting into southern New York, we still expect maybe another 12 to 20 inches in some spots with those heavier bands. So you can see there's in these heavier bands, we could get some really good snow totals. And then once we get into Maine, there's a huge swath right here of 12 to 18 inches. But you remember, we are expecting that sleet to mix in, and this does count sleet too. So some of these totals are sleet, and sleet usually packs down that snow and lessens your snow totals. So just watch out where sleet can mix in. That could really ruin a lot of these totals, and it's possible in a lot of these spots, especially closer to the coast. As we get into New York City, maybe another 3 to 5 to 6 inches, and same across Long Island. And as you can see, as we get into the Boston area, our totals are pretty significantly cut to maybe 3 to 5 inches in some spots. Now, once we go west, we're in a good swath of 12 to 14 to 18 inches. So you're good there. And then once we go more inland, there's some pretty good totals over there too. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. And you can see I do down here towards these areas, that wouldn't be right now for a lot of you. That would be at this wraparound moisture or the lingering moisture that we could be getting, especially across a lot of these areas. I don't know if we'll get this much over these areas, but it's definitely possible. DC, you're pretty much done. Maybe a little bit of a dusting, but to the north of DC, towards Frederick, we could pick up maybe another 1 to 2 inches possibly. So that's what we're looking at. You can see in the Appalachian Mountains, we're going to be picking up quite a bit. Towards the North Carolina mountains, I will show you this. Hopefully it'll load so we don't have to wait too long. But they're actually expecting quite a bit of snow to fall. I just thought this was interesting. This is a lot of that wraparound moisture actually coming from the Great Lakes in a lot of these areas. But you can see down towards parts of the southern Appalachians, they're expecting possibly about a foot of snow in this one area specifically towards southern Appalachians getting into the Smoky Mountains. It's a lot of those west-facing slopes, but you see that red over there, that is about a foot of snow or more. And then other than that, this is like a 5 to 8 inches in a lot of the purple. And then other than that, it's 1 to 3 in the lighter blues. And then in the darker blues, it's 3 to 5. So you can also use that in here. You can see Cleveland, we could pick up another 1 to 3, maybe a few more inches in those heavier bursts especially. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe. I will have another video coming to you about maybe a huge cool down, biggest cool down in years possibly coming. not this week, but next week, and also a couple more systems we're watching. I'll bring that to you tomorrow. This is probably my last video on this. This winter storm is insane. It's not done yet. Don't, especially if you're in the Northeast, don't let this catch you off guard. Just stay home. But yeah, hope y'all enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.